listening to Unravel with Natly Denise.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Nightly with Natly, a segment of Unravel with Natly Denise. I got a very special podcast I'm publishing tomorrow morning with a sex trafficking survivor. It is a very endearing podcast. We had a really good conversation, myself and this account called Girl Redeemed. And so look out for that in the morning time, whether you are... Oh, look, it's an Australian. What up, Mama T? Nice to have you on my podcast. Thanks so much for what is it? Morning time over there? Thanks so much for hanging out with me. So, yes, a podcast will be published tomorrow morning. Again, sex trafficking survivor. Well, I think she kind of named it both kind of like sex trafficking survivor as well as like she was within the prostitution industry and she was just like a regular girl who was a college student and she somehow fell into like the life. So anyway, I had the pleasure of getting to know her story. And you guys should check it out tomorrow in both forms, audio and video. So check that out. So I see that the news made the rounds today about the crack pipe distribution by the Biden admin. This is just so ridiculous. I posted this yesterday, and then I think I did a story on it yesterday as well. But if you're new or you're barely catching up, I did a piece on it on my main YouTube. It's it's one of the latest stories that I did, but the Biden administration, basically they're funding $30 million. They're funding $30 million for crack pipe distribution. And they're claiming that the reasoning for that is so that way people don't get cuts when they're using the crack pipes and they don't get infections. I mean, like, never mind that there's, no funding to take care of the children, that are in the foster care system. Pay no minds that they need more advocates. Pay no minds that there's an ongoing human trafficking, sex trafficking crisis in our country. We're just talking about America here, let alone the world. But they want to find the money to fund drug abuse as a recreational thing. Mama T says, I was addicted to crack, born again. February in 2020, set free. Hallelujah. God bless you. So good, such good news. God bless you, Mama T. I'm so glad to hear that. It's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing to normalize all these horrific things going on in our world, drug abuse, and then, normalizing the sexualization of our culture, the pervasiveness. And actually, this is a subject that we're going to talk about tomorrow on the podcast. Just the pervasiveness of our culture and how it's so taboo now to like be celibate and, to wait and all these things. And we kind of get a little bit vulnerable talking about that on the podcast tomorrow. So you guys can check that out on this channel and also in audio form. All right. So let's get straight to some news here. Let's see. What do I got for you? All right. So let's talk about some of this going on in the Russia versus Ukraine thing going on. An army general, this is coming from the Daily Mail, is tapped to take over Middle East command, says Russia invading Ukraine could spill into Syria and warns Iran is still the biggest threat to U.S. interests. Well, let's take a look here. Aren't you Biden voters so glad that you just, ushered in this catastrophe of a president? The army general selected to take command of U.S. troops in the Middle East warned on Tuesday that Russian invasion of Ukraine could spill over into Syria. And you guys already see everything that's going on in Syria. It's already a crisis. All of this is just already ongoing. where Moscow might try to act as a spoiler. But Lieutenant General Eric 𝘠𝘂 told the Senate Armed Services Committee that Iran remains the biggest threat to U.S. interests in the region. He said that China was expanding into reach across the Central Command region, including countries that the U.S. was reliant on for gathering intelligence on terrorist groups in Afghanistan. In his opening statement, he described a changing world where the U.S. faced expanding reach of competitors. The United States faces a new era of strategic competition with China and Russia that is not confined to one geographical region and extends into Central Command, area, and responsibility, he said. As the United States rightfully prioritizes competition with China, we must remain engaged in the Middle East and in Central and South Asia. Are we really competing with China? Because it kind of seems like we're giving China like the leash. Like, here you go. Here's everything. Business deals. We're actually going to get into that because there's some tea on Hunter Biden. But I guess that's what they're saying. Competition, or prioritizing competition with China. He appeared before the committee as the world waits for President Vladimir Putin's next move. Everybody is on thin ice, I think, right now. Continued on, and you guys see here, there's still thousands of troops, Russian troops stationed around the Ukrainian border. So everybody's just kind of on their toes right now, just waiting for the next move. But in the meanwhile, Ukraine is doing a lot of drafting, a lot of training, because they apparently can't stand against the 100,000 troop already planned at the border. Moscow has amassed more than 100,000 troops on the border with Ukraine, but denies it's planning to invade its neighbor. Korea said that any move in Ukraine might trigger moves in Syria, where Russia was acted prop up President Bashar al-Assad and thwart the spread of democracy. I believe if Russia does invade Ukraine, they will not hesitate to be able to act as a spoiler in Syria as well, he said, before referring to Russia's activity in electronic warfare. He says, already we see it as one of the most contested electromagnetic spectrum environments that we're currently operating in. Korea, a combat-hardened officer with the extensive experience in Iraq and Afghanistan wars, got a friendly reception from the panel that was told he would probably be confirmed. If he gets the job, Korea, who is the general, would take over as the Pentagon shifts its focus in the Indo-Pacific and tries to counter a rising China and bolster defenses against Russia in Europe. But Iran and Tehran-backed proxies have kept a steady drumbeat of attacks on U.S. and allied forces across the Middle East, often hindering plans to shift more troops out of the region. Korea would replace Marine General Frank McKenzie, who is retiring after 3 years leading the command. McKenzie has overseen a tumultuous time in the region with America's chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, this dismantling of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, and escalating threats from the Iran and its proxies as they launch more attacks against Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and ships at sea. So, continued on. Where did I go? Korea, who is currently the commander of the 18th Airborne Corps, told the committee that after hearing that he was deploying to Germany as part of the U.S. effort to reassure allies concerned about Russia's military buildup along Ukraine's borders on China, Korea said 18 of the 21 countries in the Central Command region have signed strategic agreements with Beijing, which has increased the development in the Middle East. The U.S., he said, has able to counter China there. Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know about that. China has increased their spending 360% in the Middle East, he said. So I believe it's of great concern, and we do have to do is expose their predatory practices where they treat every country as a client or a customer. Aha! Prelude to what we're going to walk into, where the deal in the relationships and we're partners and allies. Let's pivot to the next story, okay? Because Hunter Biden actually did a piece on this. I actually did a piece on this, but we went through on my main channel some deals that were done by Hunter Biden, or the Biden family rather, with these Chinese big timers that were somehow connected to the 𝘏𝐶𝐝 entity. They got like $31 million from these deals. But now it's revealed. Look, here's the thing about this next story, and it's in regards to Hunter Biden again. My question always is, why do these pieces of information always come down in trickles? You know, it's always like every so few days or weeks, there's a new story, a new exclusive on Hunter Biden and his business and his associates. And it's quite questionable why this is. So Hunter Biden, according to dailymail.com, this is an exclusive. He tried to broker a $120 million oil deal between Chinese energy firm now under U.S. sanctions and the former Kazakhstan prime minister, who has been accused of treason in hopes of pocketing a fortune. The laptop emails have revealed. Now, something that you guys may or may not know, Daily Mail actually has a copy of the hard drive. This is why I question, why is it that they always have these, pieces of information always in trickle? Like, it's always every so often there's a trickle of new information. So this is something new coming from the laptop. Hunter Biden was working with Chinese oil company in Kazakhstan that is now under U.S. sanctions, and former Kazakh prime minister is now accused of treason in a broker. I'm sorry. So let me try to word this better, because I don't think Daily Mail did a good job at wording this first thing. So Hunter Biden was working with the Chinese oil company in Kazakhstan that is under Kazakhstan is under U.S. sanctions right now. And also a former Kazakh prime minister is now accused of treason. Now, what they're trying to say here is that Hunter Biden was working a deal to broker a lucrative pipeline deal. Emails obtained by the dailymail.com, of course, from this laptop from hell, show that the president's show teamed up with the former Kazakh prime minister, 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢, now facing charges of high treason, try to pull off a $120 million pipeline deal after similar ventures had faced opposition from Western energy firms. Now, here's the thing. They're saying that, from what I believe I'm reading here, because it says the president's son teamed up with the former Kazakh prime minister, 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢, who is now facing charges of high treason, to try to pull off a $120 million pipeline deal after similar ventures had faced opposition from Western energy firms. Now, they indicate here there's no indication that Masimov's charges are connected to the Hunter's pipeline deal. Now, I don't know how they're trying to word this here, but from what I believe they're trying to say is that this prime minister from Kazakhstan actually is facing high treason charges based off of a deal, a pipeline deal he was trying to make, but not necessarily that it connects to this deal. I don't know if that's what they're trying to say, but that's how I read it. There's one of Hunter's proposed Kazakh energy deals involves the state of China, National Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOOC, one of China's biggest oil firms. The company was sanctioned in 2020 and again last year for its alleged involvement in the Chinese government's coercive behavior in the South China Sea. Continued on. Emails from Hunter's abandoned laptop show he traveled to Beijing and Kazakhstan to forge a blockbuster oil deal between the two countries in 2014 and 2015. Okay. How is this not yet treason? Because there are other indications that Hunter Biden leveraged his relationship, obviously, with his father in a power leverage to secure these deals. Hunter brokered the deal on behalf of Ukrainian gas firm Burisma, on whose board he sat. His role at the firm, owned by oligarch accused of corruption, is already deeply controversial. Now, I'm just going to pause and say this. I'm just going to pause really quick and say this. Why do you guys think that all of this is happening all of a sudden, where this information on China and Burisma and Ukraine is happening when there is an impending war at the border right now of Ukraine and Russia? Why do you guys think that this is happening? You know, don't you guys like agree with that? Like there's something that seems to be impending right now, that all of this information, this is why I question it. Why is it that this information only comes out in trickles when they've had this laptop for at least 2 years? And we now have an impending war at the border of Ukraine and Russia. There's a possible Russian invasion. Somehow this congruent information shows up about Ukraine, Burisma, the deals with China. You guys see what I'm saying? All right. So with that being said, the involvement of Hunter's Chinese business partners with Burisma adds a new and troubling dimension to his dealings in Eastern Europe, indicating that he was working on a deal that would indirectly further the energy interests of the Chinese government while hoping to collect millions of dollars for himself. 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘀 had been trying for years to break into the Kazakh energy market, a strategically advantageous source of oil and gas for China, previously dubbed the Second Middle East by its chief financial officer. The Chinese oil giant tried to buy a $615 million piece of Kazakhstan's North Caspian Sea project from a unit in British gas company BG Group in 2003, but it was blocked by a group of Western companies, including ExxonMobil, Royal Dutch Shell, and Total Fina Elf. Kazakh and Chinese governments have also talked for years about building a pipeline between the two countries. As previous as 1997, an agreement stalled over the cost worries, but the appetite for massive infrastructure projects was rekindled with the Chinese expansionist Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. So when one of Hunter's Chinese partners emailed him in April of 2014 saying 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢 wanted to work with them, he saw dollar signs. Continued on. And these are the emails that they sourced it from, just for the tea. And this is what they pretty much, had a dialogue about this in emails. It proves Hunter's previous involvement with 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢 could present a conflict of interest for President Joe Biden, which administration imposed sanctions on the company. The U.S. Commerce Department claims 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢 has repeatedly harassed and threatened offshore oil and gas exploration and extraction of the South China Sea, with the goal of driving up the political risk of interested foreign partners, including Vietnam. The department's sanctions only cover the company's activity in the South China Sea, but not their global operations. After teeing up their deal with the Chinese, Devon, Hunter's business partner, wrote to Vadim that they had secured a meeting with the Kazakh Prime Minister, Massimov, which I believe they spelt wrong, because this is the same prime minister I believe got charged with high treason. Everything will revolve. So again, you guys see what I'm saying here? Like, this all seems just very, like, it seems very coincidental that this type of news is coming up as there is an impending war. Like, it makes me just kind of like, I guess it kind of makes me conspire in my head, like, what if they did invade Ukraine? Why is Ukraine and the US so, despite the adversarial, type of conflicts, despite the things that, we vow to back, especially Ukraine, but the amount of possible corruption that we're already kind of seeing based off of just media outlets that are deploying out this information. Is there something that the Russian entities would recover within Ukraine in regards to the US that would show us a lot more? And I think that we're just getting preludes of this by this information here with Burisma and the Chinese deals and all that. Everything, this is what Devon wrote in an email. Everything will revolve around that meeting, and the subject will be securing the highest quality proven reserve field in Kazakhstan, he said. Additional concepts for cooperation will be discussed as well. Devon wrote that after his meeting with Massimov, he planned to fly from Kazakhstan capital to Beijing to update their Chinese backers. There's a preliminary plan from there to meet Alex to travel from Beijing to Astana. If we're able to coordinate CNOOC cooperation meetings in that time frame, we would hopeful you and 𝘶𝘶𝘏𝘶 to join us as well. So, and then it furthers into, it does mention the $31 million deal that they got for 𝘱𝘭𝘬, one of the Chinese partnerships, and then also mentions ditching the Secret Service. That's Hunter Biden ditching the Secret Service to do that. Isn't that something? I mean, like the audacity of these people. Ryan says lots of Biden and Pelosi corruption secrets in Ukraine and Kazakhstan. And he says I'm going to call this the geometry confirmed. The geometry confirmed cabals and W octopus headquarters. Yeah. Many say that Kazakhstan is kind of like this front psyop. You know what I mean? Like this front psyop of you know how, remember that movie Borat, where in Borat it kind of made it seem like this like really poor country, and Kazakhstan wasn't like built on infrastructure and all these things, but when you really look at pictures of Kazakhstan, it really doesn't look like that. Kazakhstan, people say that there's like some sort of front for like, it actually is a psyop, that it actually is a rich country. But I don't know that. I've never been to Kazakhstan. Anyway. Okay, moving into some trafficking news. This might be a short podcast today. All right, this is coming from, let me put up my brand, throw up my brand here. All right, so we're walking into the Daily TrafficK, where I bring you guys the latest in human trafficking news. This is coming from Hendersonville Standard. 13 are charged in a human trafficking sting. This is Hendersonville is in Tennessee, the Tennessee area. Hendersonville Police and Sumner County Sheriff's Office deputies recently participated in an undercover operation that resulted in the arrest of 13 men accusing of seeking illicit sex from children. Changing the words here because these articles like to, I don't know that they like to do that, but it just seems less blow when we don't call it for what it is. The investigation aimed at addressing human trafficking in the Middle Tennessee area took place in over a 2-day period beginning February 3rd, and also involved special agents with the TBI Human Trafficking Unit, Homeland Security Investigations, and the Tennessee Human Trafficking Task Force. Undercover officers placed several decoy advertisements on websites known to be linked to prostitution and commercial sex, according to TBI. The focus on the operation was to identify individuals seeking to engage in commercial sex acts with minors. This is the second such operation conducted by TBI special agents and other law enforcement partners in 2022. 13 similar operations were conducted across the state in 2021. As a result of the operation, agents and detectives arrested 13 men who were booked into Sumner County Jail. All right. Moving forward. This is coming from the Gainesville Police Department press release. They make a child exploitation arrest. Gainesville. What state is Gainesville? I think that's like a Carolina, if I'm correct. Take a look at the chat here. See what you guys got. On February 8th, 2022, the Gainesville Police Department Internet Crimes Against Children Division, with the assistance of GPD SWAT, served a search warrant from the 6300 block of Northwest 33rd Terrace. The investigation was prompted after GPD received a cyber tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The cyber tip indicated that the account holder uploaded the shared child sexual abuse material through the social networking application of Facebook. We saw this yesterday again. Seems like this has been a daily thing where Instagram and Facebook still act as a platform in which this is still happening. You would think that they would fix this by now. And I know that they have things like what they're called like heat signatures, where I don't know if that's the right word. Is that the right name? I'm going to have to find the formal name to this, but it's basically, it's a technology that Instagram and Facebook, it's one and the same, what they use to detect images, certain images. So for instance, if there is a consistent meme that contains that what they deem, look at my bunny ears here, what they deem to be misinformation or hate speech, then they actually take like an image signature. It's kind of like an image thumb. That's what it's called, an image thumbprint. They take the outline of that image and they make a template. So if there's any other images from these accounts that are kind of distributing the same image, they have an easier time taking that image down from that account because it matches up with this template, with this thumbprint, if you will. So they have the technology. I know that that's what they use. Why don't they use that within the platforms of these places to take down CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material? It's just my question. And the total 10 tips that were received subsequent to the cyber tip, detectives obtained lawful access to the account information and the files that were shared. The files shared were determined to be child sexual abuse material of minor prepubescent children. Additionally, chats were uncovered where the suspect was soliciting child exploitation content and offering to share the content. My goodness. I mean, again, listen, this is like just a press release. This is just a press. I mean, this is Facebook. This is Instagram. Apparently, this was on the Facebook platform. But no, not biometrics. It's not biometrics. Biometrics is when they like take actual retina scans and put that in the database. I'm talking about like 2D pictures, and they take a whatchamacall, like a image outline of it. It's like a blueprint. So anyway, prepubescent children on Facebook. This content is circulating on Facebook. They have all the time in the world to take down all of this hate speech and misinformation, but they can't make the time to take down this type of material. Further investigation revealed that the account was likely registered to Emily Robinson, who lived at the residence to be searched. Robinson was interviewed by detectives on February 8th, 2022, and acknowledged ownership of the Facebook account in question. Robinson initially denied that it was her that uploaded, distributed, and solicited child sexual abuse material. Robinson then stated that she remembered one of the chats where she asked for child sexual abuse material, but it was for the purpose of outing the user on Instagram. Robinson later admitted that to uploading, distributing, and soliciting child sexual abuse material. Robinson stated that she used to be into that, but was since stopped since her Facebook account was deactivated in October of 2021. The defendant stated that she obtained the majority of the CSAM from the Facebook groups. Oh, okay. So we learn a little bit more now. Just the other day, they took down the Canadian Convoy Facebook group that I think accumulated over like 60,000 followers. This is exactly what I mean. So they have the time and the audacity to take down something like that, right? Like a patriotic movement, but they can't take down these pedo-fifi type of groups on Facebook that are actively exchanging and circulating child sexual abuse material. What the hell is going on here? A preliminary analysis of Robinson's cell phone revealed 4 videos of CSAM, which again stands for child sexual abuse material, in her possession. One video with a creation date of January 29, 2022, Robinson was taken into custody by GPD Detective Montague and charged with 4 counts of possession of child pornography, 2 counts of distribution of child pornography, and 1 count of transmission of harmful material to minors. The Gainesville Police Department wants parents to beware that children are being solicited and exploited through social networking applications. These social networking applications, like Facebook, are also used to share images and videos which depict young children being sexually abused. Be vigilant and aware of any social networking platforms your children may access. It's absolutely extraordinary that, again, that they can have time and the audacity, again, to take down all of the information that hurts their feelings versus actually taking down criminal networks on their platforms. All right, pivoting on. This is coming from CatholicNewsService.com. A former priest serving a life sentence for sexual exploitation dies in prison. Oh, wow. I knew about this story a couple months ago. I actually reported on the Daily TrafficK Instagram. This was a sick priest that utilized the confessions of young boys to then blackmail them and then solicited child pornography production from these boys. He's died in prison. A former priest of the Diocese of Cleveland serving a life term in federal prison is sexually exploiting boys has died, authorities said. Robert McWilliams was found unresponsive early February 1st in Allenwood Federal Correctional Institution, White Deer, Pennsylvania, where he was serving his sentence. The Federal Bureau of Prisons said he was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. It is believed that he died by suicide. The Cleveland Diocese said it learned of McWilliams' death after the afternoon of February 4th. McWilliams, the priest, pled guilty in November to multiple child sex abuse and pornography charges in U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Ohio. During his sentencing hearing later that week, he admitted to being addicted to pornography. In December, Pope Francis dismissed McWilliams from the priesthood. In July, McWilliams pleaded guilty for 2 counts of sex trafficking youths younger than 18, 3 counts of sexual exploitation of children, and 3 counts of involving child pornography. U.S. District Judge Sarah Leoy, said she imposed a strict sentence because the public needed to be protected from McWilliams because he had preyed upon youths who turned to him for help. So the court records show that McWilliams allegedly met male teenagers through a cell phone app after offering payment in exchange for sex. And I believe this was actually probably his, I don't know if that was his mugshot. I think it was. Absolutely sickening. All right, and this is coming from WMUR9. 7 arrested in New Hampshire on child sex abuse image charges as part of a global campaign. Nashville police announced several arrests in part of a global campaign to bring awareness of exploitation online. Police in Gate City, with assistance from New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and other agencies, arrested 12 people. 7 of either of them possessed or viewed distributed child sex abuse images, officials said. One of the people charged is Johnny Oriole of Nashua. Investigators said was communicating with someone he thought was a child. 5 others were convicted sex offenders. Again, another rant that you guys hear every night from me. The repetitive sex offenders on the screen. Why are they 5? 5 of them? There's 5? 5 others were convicted sex offenders in violation of registration requirements. Again, like in other words, they fail to register as a sex offender, so they have to get caught in order for them to get in trouble. Why are they not caught the first time that they violate not registering as a sex offender? And another thing is, why is it that we don't have harsher seekings of these people? You know? So 5 of them were convicted sex offenders. They were all ongoing investigations. They start relatively recently within the last few months. Lieutenant Brian Trefry of the Nashville Police Department said, Monday's arrests were announced on conjunction of a Safer Internet Day, a worldwide campaign meant to bring awareness to online exploitation of children. Unfortunately, child exploitation, specifically over the internet and through human trafficking, was become the largest criminal enterprise in the world. Police said parents should be aware of the social media platforms their children are using and keeping accounts private, only viewable by friends that can help protect them. If a predator is targeting a 16-year-old female, they might pretend to be a 16-year-old female online in order to establish a relationship with them when it evolves from there. All 12 individuals have been released from some form of bail, something investigators find concerning. Guys, do I not say this every single night? Every single podcast? Do I not say this every single podcast? Do I not say this every single podcast where this has become something infuriating that these people, once again, that these people, these sex offenders, these child abusers, that they are repetitively freed from a low form bail from these judges that are corrupt and won't put these people away. It has happened over and over and over again. We see this story every single week, at least every single week. If not, there's something every day from a low bail reform. Trefry said bail reform is needed in hopes that lawmakers can correct some of the issues. Individuals that are arrested for possessing, consuming, enjoying child pornography and the exploitation of children shouldn't be released on bail back onto the community, Trefry said. Exactly my point. Exactly my point. And this has happened too often recently, where this is an ongoing thing where these people are released on bail. There was a very, very specific case that it always triggers my mind. In Austin, there was two judges. The first judge, I think his name was McNellis. He actually recommended a $1 million bail for a repetitive sex offender who is homeless. They caught him molesting a child. And the secondary judge, who actually, I guess, administered an actual bail on this person, disregarded the recommendation of the $1 million bail and went with the $50,000 bail instead. So meaning that this sex offender could get out on a $5,000 because all you have to do is post, 10% of that. This is one example, and it's happening every single time. Like it's crazy that it's almost every night we're coming across this story over and over again. It's insanity. Complete insanity. We live in Gotham City now. Gotham, USA. Oh, sorry. It makes me mad. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for your support. Thank you for hanging out with me and listening to the news and listening to these stories. I really appreciate your interest in this. Be sure to share this podcast with people. Share this with family, friends that are interested in this type of news. And be sure to rate the podcast 5 stars if you can. If you're listening in audio form, I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for your support. And once again, I'll see you guys tomorrow in another Nightly with Natly, the Daily TrafficK. Bye-bye. And sleep easy and be blessed.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Unravel with Natly Denise. Please give this podcast 5 stars.